free, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend.
Welcome to Belgrade Online. We're glad you decided to join us today. I'm Chantill, and I'll be your host today. Here at Belgrade, we hope to encourage you in your journey and explore what that means in new and beautiful ways. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode. Up next, announcements. Then we will see who's having birthdays and anniversaries this week. After that, we will hear from the pastor, the scriptures, and let the Spirit move you with some music before I come back to see you off. Welcome to Belgrade Online.
This week is Second Harvest. That means we are looking for your help to bless our community by distributing produce to people in need. If you are available on Monday from about 10:30 a.m. to 1:15 p.m., please come to the Belgrade parking lot here at 325 Sherman in North Mankato around 10:30 on Monday. We hope to see you there.
All are welcome to the bridal shower for Shealyn Kahler-Royer and Sergio Salgado on Tuesday, June 14th at 7 p.m. in the Fellowship Hall. Please join us for dessert, fellowship, and games. Shealyn and Sergio have started a life fund to pay for school and life needs. Please RSVP to Miriam Feist or Wendy Calm to determine the number of guests to prepare for.
This week's birthdays and anniversaries. On the 12th, happy birthday,
Kent Calm.
On the 12th, happy birthday,
Steve Many.
On the 13th, happy birthday,
Bruce Burnett.
On the 13th, happy birthday,
Pat Keel.
On the 14th, happy birthday,
Chris Buller.
On the 14th, happy birthday,
Cody Dahlman.
On the 14th, happy birthday,
Nancy Roberts.
On the 15th, happy birthday,
Amber Gabrick.
On the 15th, happy birthday,
Jenny Robbins.
On the 15th, happy birthday,
Troy Sanford.
On the 16th, happy birthday,
Warren Anderson.
On the 12th, happy anniversary,
Stephen Judy Johnson.
On the 14th, happy anniversary,
John and Brenda Hone.
On the 15th, happy anniversary,
Kevin and Susan Black.
On the 17th, happy anniversary,
Timothy and Lorena Blum.
On the 18th, happy anniversary,
Stan and Joe Stokesbury.
Have a great week.
All right, so we are closing out our series today, our lessons, kingdom lessons from the Golden Girls series that we've been talking about. And I've enjoyed this series. It's a fun series, but there's the reason why I think it's fun is because I love being able to find elements of the kingdom of God in unexpected places. Because that's really what it's about, and that's a lot of what Jesus was trying to show when he came, was that those that we think have it all together really don't have it all together. And the kingdom is really found in all of us. It's found in the messiness of our everyday lives. It's found in the struggles that we all go through. It's found in the places where we're not as put together as maybe we display to everyone else as we are. It's found in the mudgery and the drudgery and the struggle of our lives. And those that seem like they're most holy oftentimes are those that are the farthest from the kingdom, and those that seem like they're just an absolute mess a lot of times are actually closer to the kingdom than we realize. And so I love how Jesus consistently points this out. In the Gospels, it seems like he's always fighting for those who are pushed to the margins socially because they're ostracized, because they're not looked at as good enough, or they're not professional enough, or they're not mature enough, or they don't have their lives together, or they don't have their ducks in a row, or whatever it may be. He always seems to be going to those who are pushed to the lower ladders of the class systems, to speak. Even if the class isn't a formal caste system, it's a social system. And so you see him going to sinners' houses to eat with them. You see him, eating and dining with people that are deep into addiction and drunkards and prostitutes and things like that. They're people like this, and he's close to them. And those that are the religious leaders, those are the ones that always seem to get Jesus when he's ornery. Jesus usually gets pretty prickly with the religious leaders. Matter of fact, if you read the Gospels top to back, he really only gets angry at religious leaders. Whenever he gets thundering and really short with people, it's those that are the holy ones, except one time with Peter. But that was to prove a point. So I love this series because it shows us how the kingdom is for everyone. The kingdom of God is for all of us. And those that you might not think are close are actually closer than the rest of us sometimes. So what we've been doing in this series is we've been going through each character in this TV show, The Golden Girls, right? So you've got Sophia. She's like this little old spicy New York, Brooklyn Italian lady who you wouldn't want to meet in a back alley because she'd take you down no matter how big you are, And she comes, you get the impression she's burnt down her group home to come live with her daughter, who there's lots of issues there going on. So you got Sophia, and then you've got her daughter Dorothy, who is very sarcastic and has a lot of unchecked pain and hurt in her life and deals with a lot of shame. And so we talked about that. Then you've got Rose, who is kind of the dim-witted one from Minnesota. I feel attacked. No, from the fictional town of St. Olaf, who always seems to have something to say that has nothing to do with what's really being talked about, but has this huge heart and this huge care for others. And we talked about how she uses her stories to communicate in helpful ways that aren't helpful, but somehow are helpful. And now today, we're talking about the last character, and that's the character of Blanche. Now, I've had a few folks come up to me like, "How are you going to tie Blanche into church?" And I said, "Well, there's a lot that might not translate, but there's a lot that does translate there." So the idea, this character that Blanche plays, she's a Southern belle, very raised in the deep South. Debutante ball, all this kind of thing. And so she finds herself a widow. She's in Miami. She owns this house and rents out the rooms to the other ladies and is kind of the glue that holds everyone together. Blanche she's a chronic dater, we'll just put it like that, since her husband passes away. She's constantly looking for validation. She comes across many times very selfish. She can get really super snippy, as is kind of a typecast for a Southern belle sometimes. But she's very, very, very strong on her family's culture and her family's trends, and she'll always tell stories about her father, who she affectionately calls Big Daddy. I love Big Daddy. Big Daddy always used to say, she's kind of shallow, but she, doesn't necessarily think deeply. She's more of a feeler through life than a thinker. However, one thing I've noticed about Blanche is she has a huge heart, but she's got a huge amount of care for her friends. Her friends and her family, she might get super snippy and selfish many times, but she will go to bat for her friends and her family. She will love them. She talks very affectionately about her late husband, George, and she loves her daughter, Rebecca. And so, as I'm thinking about, okay, how do I want to tie in? Because I know what I want to say about Blanche's character, but how do I tie it in? And I found that there's, instead of kind of looking at her character over the episodes, I think there's one episode in particular that I'm going to show kind of a longer clip. So the sermon part is going to be shorter this week, and the clip is going to be a little longer this week, because this is from one specific episode. And this is actually, I'm cheating a little bit here, because this isn't actually from the Golden Girls TV show. There was a spin-off TV show with all the same characters and all the same actors and actresses, except for B. Arthur, who plays Dorothy. She decided to leave the series. So when she decided to leave the series, they ended that's why the Golden Girls ended. But the producers wanted to keep the show going. So they basically took all the same characters, and instead of filming them at their house, they made them the owner of a hotel called the Golden Palace. And so it's, in essence, the same show, except now they're managing a hotel, and Dorothy's not on the show. But all the other same characters, plus a few new characters, are on the show. So I'm taking this clip that I'm going to show you in a few minutes it's actually from the Golden Palace, but it's all the same characters and the same actors and actresses. So I'm going to set this clip up a little bit, because if you just watch the clip, you might think it's about one thing. But it's actually about that, but it's about much more than what the clip seems to be about. And you'll understand what I mean once you start watching it. So this clip it's about 7 or 8 minutes, and I'm just going to unpack it a little bit afterwards and give some final tips after we see this clip. But this is basically their hotel, which is called the Golden Palace, is going through some financial struggles, and so they're opening up their ballroom for bigger, larger, multi-day conferences and parties and stuff. And so they happen to have this one party that's coming to stay in their hotel for a few days, to have like a banquet or a ball there for a few days. And Blanche, remember, who's from the Deep South, she brings in this group called the Daughters of the Traditional South. And without getting into that too much, you'll see from the clip, that evokes some strong emotions from a new character in the show who is a famous actor now, but wasn't famous when the show was on. And this guy works for the hotel, but he has strong emotions about this group coming in because it's the Daughters of the Traditional South, and this character happens to be a black man. So, with that understanding, we're going to watch this clip, and then we'll talk a little bit about what this means and how Blanche's character can teach us something about the kingdom of God afterwards. So, let's go ahead and roll this clip. Pop the popcorn.
Daughters of the Traditional South?
Roland, there is nothing wrong with the Daughters of the Traditional South.
Oh, I see. When they put those sheets on over their heads, it must be some kind of salute to Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Oh, when is that? Roland, this is not that kind of organization.
Are you telling me you really don't see who these women are?
I am telling you that I see 10 rooms in our hotel rented for 3 nights at a time when we desperately need the business. You are overreacting. This is just a bunch of harmless little old ladies who like to get together and put on white gloves and have tea.
With someone showing complete disregard for an entire race of people.
Blanche isn't like that. You don't know her. Sure, she may come from the old South, but she's a very modern thinker. I was in Dixie, away, away. In Dixieland, I take my stand to live and die in Dixie, away, away, away down
Oh, wait up. You're not hanging that flag in here.
Well, of course I am.
Blanche, do you know what this flag represents?
This flag belonged to Big Granddaddy Hollingsworth. He used to bring it to all our fine old Southern family picnics where all the cousins would gather. Everybody was courteous and mannerly, and gentlemen would ask ladies for the favor of a dance.
Wait a minute, now I get it. This is just good old-fashioned fun.
Yes.
Okay, we'll say, how about on Tuesday nights we hang the Nazi flag, hire an oompa band, and dress you up like Eva Braun?
This is not the same as the Nazi flag.
Well, it is to me, Blanche. Look, when you look at this flag, you see some southern fairy tale with the guy who looks like Burl Ives dressed in a white suit tipping his hat to you saying, "Evening, Miss Blanche."
Evening. Oh, I'm sorry, Roland. You were making a point.
That's not funny, Blanche.
Well, that's ancient history, and you know it. Things aren't like that anymore. Uh-oh, here they come. So, are we going to check them in? Can we afford not to?
After they're checked in, Blanche, I want this flag to come down. Wait a minute, why is that flag still there?
I guess Blanche didn't get to it yet.
Oh, I see.
Hey, what are you doing?
I don't want this here, Blanche.
Well, I swear, if you're not making such a thing. You know, I remember once when Big Granddaddy Hollingsworth took...
Look, just stop it. This flag, Mrs. Devereaux, is not about college football games or quilting bees or fried chicken on Sunday. It's about colleges that won't let me in. It's about companies that won't hire me. It is about crosses being burnt on people's lawns today. Not in the evil past, Blanche, today. And not just in the South, all over. The North is just as bad.
This is just a flag. To me, this is just a bunch of wonderful family memories.
Well, I don't think I want to work for anybody who feels that way. I don't think I can.
But Roland...
I'm just going to look for another job, Blanche. Sometimes what you believe is more important than business. Although what some people believe is unbelievable.
Now, Roland, I am not some kind of bigot because I love this flag and I resent that implication. You just stop that right now.
Oh, yes, ma'am, Miss Devereaux. Old Roland don't want to cause you no trouble at all.
You hold on to that one. He's a good one.
What did you say?
He's a good one.
Roland, wait. Hey, Roland, I don't feel like that woman in there. I don't feel that way at all.
But can't you see, Blanche, that flag ties what you believe and what she believes together. Look, I'm telling you, the legacy of that flag is alive every time I walk down the street with a group of my friends and I see a white person cross over to the other side because they're afraid. Or look, when I'm in the elevator with somebody like you and you're all huddled over in the corner wondering what I'm gonna do, sometimes I just want to go, oh. Just to break the tension. So please don't tell me about that flag. I've battled that flag all my life.
Roland, I'm sorry. I am sorry for everything you have been through, but what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to think about all my family, all my friends? All right, when I was in school, maybe I was a little less sensitive than I could have been. But I was just doing what all my friends were doing. They were my friends, and we were just acting like everybody we knew acted. Oh. And then when I had my first baby, well, the hospital was packed, and I had to share a room with a young black woman. George made a big stink about the accommodation. She had to have heard him. And I know her baby was every bit as cute as mine. Cuter, in fact. Rebecca was an ugly baby. Turned out fine. Ugly baby. You can get an idea of how she looked if you catch Sophia some morning with her teeth out. The point is, what am I supposed to do and think about my family now? What am I supposed to think about all those people I love? What am I supposed to think about me? Everything I grew up believing in, all my wonderful memories, they're all tarnished now by... Oh, God. By the truth. I owe you an apology.
No, you don't know that.
Will you stay?
Blanche, you really have to start listening to me when I tell you something is bothering me. And I'll try to understand why some of these things mean so much to you. Look, the whole world is messed up right now, and I would like to see that get better, but in order for that to happen, white people are gonna have to start making positive assumptions when they see people of color. And people of color could make positive assumptions when they see white people. Man, things are just messed up. Blanche, let's just try and get rid of all the barriers and just trust each other, okay? Right on.
So there's a lot in that. But see, this video cuts to the core of why the world is in such chaos and has been for millennia. He says the world is just messed up right now. That was 1992. That is 30 years ago. That episode aired 30 years ago. And it's just the same today. Now listen, there's, again, like I said before the video, there's obviously issues of racism in there, but I don't show you that just for that purpose. This isn't actually just about racism. This is about conflict in general. This is about seeing the pain and the hurt in other people. And it could be between people of a lighter colored skin and people of darker colored skin. It could be people who have one political persuasion and other people who have a different political persuasion. In essence, it comes down to people who have one opinion with other people who have another opinion. This is about how we approach each other when there's conflict, because there was a huge amount of conflict there. And at the end, there was resolve, but there's a reason there was some sort of a resolve, because there was an emotional resolve, but the issue wasn't resolved. We don't know what happened. We don't know if the writers would have continued writing the story. We don't know what would have happened with their characters, how they navigated that issue together. But the idea is that in that 8 minutes, now that's one whole episode I chopped sueyed up into about 8 minutes. But the issue there is that there's two people who had a relationship who kept talking and came to some sort of a common ground at the end. And so this is about conflict and how conflict grows. And how we can stop conflict from growing. Because here's the deal, here's the issue. Either in every relationship, whether how small, relationship within ourselves, relationship with those close to us, no matter how small or how great our relationship as a people to another people, to one geopolitical nation, to another geopolitical nation, whatever. When it comes to conflict, either the conflict will grow, or we will grow. But they cannot happen at the same time. They cannot both happen at the same time. Either the conflict grows, or we grow. Because conflict will grow when people don't either know how to navigate a conflict together, or they don't want to navigate the conflict together. And on the flip side, if two people do want to navigate conflict together, it's going to cause both parties to grow, which is painful. And if that happens, the conflict will not grow, it'll shrink. So either a conflict grows or we grow. And it can't both be at the same time. It's way more satisfying in the short term to let the conflict grow. Because for that to happen, we get to stand our ground and say what we believe and really stick it to the other person. And we get to take our opinion and say, here's my experience, here's what this is, and this is this. And we get to have this clear picture of who's right, who's wrong, who's good, who's bad. And we get to have this egotistical satisfaction of standing up for what we believe in. And we walk away and say, I feel good about myself. But guess what? That's one of the many things I call the bait of Satan. Because that short-term gratification will rot in your mouth. And it will cause you to shrink as a human and not to grow as a human. It's so momentarily satisfying to have those times when you feel like you're a crusader for your cause and you're winning, you know. But Jesus has never called us to be like that as his followers. So either the conflict grows or we grow. And so when it comes to living a life with each other, it's living a life with each other's opinions and viewpoints. Because what happens when we take that position where we stand up for what's right and wrong, for our opinions in the momentary, pretty soon you get a very polarized situation where no healthy dialogue can take place because the emotions get so high. And when your emotions get so high, physiologically speaking, your anatomy, what happens is there's this little thing in your brain called the amygdala. This little control command center in your brain called the amygdala. And when that thing gets activated, you go into what's called fight or flight mode. You're going to run or you're going to fight. You're not going to understand. Your reasoning faculties literally get shut off because you go into survival mode. So when emotions are so high, when things become hot, this is why hot button issues never go away, because there's so much emotion behind them on both sides that there can be no reasoning, there can be no understanding, because the people on both sides are so anchored in their opinion. And it becomes so polarized. And these scenarios are doomed from the start. Because one person will get angry and they'll put their foot on the ground, and the other person will put their foot on the ground, and then it just escalates, and they get polarized, and now the mere mention of any word that alludes to this topic, bang, our amygdala lights up and we're into it. And there's no reasoning to be had. There's no discussion to be had. And again, these scenarios are doomed from the start, and they're doomed from the start for one reason. And it's because, without realizing it, when we get into these scenarios, from the start, both parties had an incorrect goal when they came to the table, or when the topic came up in the first place. It's a goal problem. We have the wrong purpose in talking about these things sometimes. The whole purpose behind conflict and getting things out on the table isn't to just air our emotions out. Isn't to see how many shots we can get in without the other person coming back at us, because we know they're going to be suspending judgment to listen to us. Because it doesn't work. You're just going to make more hot button issues. But the goal of interactions, of conflict, is simply this. It's connection. If we want to do it the Jesus way, it's connection and it's growth. It's connection and it's growth. But a lot of times conflict goes south and we get polarization and hot button issues because instead of connection and growth being the goal is propagating our viewpoint, is making sure that other person knows what we believe and that we think we are doggone right. I almost didn't say doggone there. Forgive me. I reeled that one in. Don't hate on your brother. Come on now. So we believe we're right and we want to get that viewpoint out. Connection and growth about the other person, we don't really care. We just want to get our viewpoint out on the table. There it is, you know. And it just causes more and more friction, because then the other person is just going to propagate their viewpoint. And we're going to double down and propagate our viewpoint more. And we're going to say no, and no, because this, and we get more and more frustrated, more and more angry. And when we get into those situations, and the conflict grows, and now we've got this polarized hot button things. I'm not just talking about politically. I'm talking about in relationships. I'm talking about in friendships, in family members, in marriages, in workplace situations. And did you know that it's not only a goal problem, but when those things happen, the hot button issues aren't really about the issues anymore at all. Now the issues, why we get so frustrated isn't really because we think we're right and the other person's wrong. It's simply this. The issues around our anger and our fierceness is something deeper. Because like I said, as humans, we're meant to connect. And in order to connect, we need, as humans, to feel seen and we need to feel heard, and we need to experience being treated as a human, not as an accessory to someone else's life. Seen, heard, and experience being treated as human, not to just be an accessory to someone's life, and that accessory just be novelty, just some novelty to someone's life. Oh, you're fun. I enjoy talking to you because you're fun. You make me feel good, blah, blah, blah. We want to feel seen. We want to feel heard. We want to have experience that other person is humanizing us. And the moment these things are derailed for an opinion, that process of heightening anger and polarization is about to kick into fast gear. So conflict is never about the issue. It's always about feeling seen, feeling heard and understood, and being treated as human, that kind of a thing. And so there's so many reasons why these kinds of things happen. We get insecure. We try to make ourselves look more respectable, you know. We're afraid of being seen as you know, not respected or not being seen as smart or wise or maybe thoughtful. And so we want to make sure that we want to assert the way we want to look in someone else's eyes. We want to assert that. And so then we more forcefully get our opinion across, because if we're right, then they'll see us as more wise or more smart or more respectable or more funny or whatever it is. So we get more and more angry, and anger over a cause becomes the primary way to fight for a cause in those situations. But when you get there, anger shuts down the conversation completely. I always say this: anger can be a very powerful catalyst for change, but it can quickly turn toxic. It's a terrible sustainer of that change. Because anger can become manipulative. Because it goes beyond just disagreeing with someone's viewpoint. It can get into territory where you misrepresent another person's viewpoint, where you intentionally skew someone's viewpoint to make it look ridiculous. It takes the nuance out of it. It makes the conflict look more black and white than it really is. And this can happen in any situation at all. It can happen in friendships. It can happen in marriages. It can happen in work relationships. It happens all the time in politics, in family, in church, your neighborhood, wherever. And so these are some issues of why conflict arises. Now, that clip that I showed you of Blanche and the character whose name is Roland, they navigate that in a very interesting way. And if you just, a surface watching really quick makes it look like, wow, they're just, what in the world are they doing healthy there? Because it looks just like a fight. But if you look closely, there are some ways that Blanche could have navigated that better, sure. But as a whole, there are some things that she did and that Roland did to come to the end that it came to. And so I want to give you just a couple quick tips about navigating these kinds of situations. I'm probably going to do a whole series on this in the coming months. I've got like 5 or 6 series that I'm working out right now at the same time. But in a short quadruple A format, you know, they all start with A. So there's 4 things that we can do to help navigate that, and things to keep in mind as we hit these conflicts that we see there in certain ways. There's ways to navigate these things on a level. And we got to go deeper than this, but this is a great starting point. And this same formula works for receiving criticism, giving criticism, but also, you know, just putting boundaries up in our own lives as well. But to have healthy conflict, the starting point, there's 4 things. Quadruple A format, you can think it like this. The first thing is to assess what that other person is saying. And here's what I mean by assess. There's what when there's any conflict, we all know there's what somebody says, and there's what we hear. 90% of conflict happens right in this spot. The person says something, but the other person doesn't hear what they're saying. The other person is hearing what a couple of words in what that person said made them feel like. It triggered them, it brought up different emotions from these different hurts and pains in their past. And so this person is now misunderstanding what that person says. Without realizing it, their emotions misrepresent it, and now they're angry about something that person didn't actually say. So you have to assess what's going on. You have to assess what that person is really saying. And to do that, before you let yourself get emotional, you've got to repeat back to them what they said. So if I hear you right, you're saying this, and that'll give that person a chance to clarify. Oh no, I'm not saying that, I'm saying this. And you get down and you figure out, regardless of, which is really hard to do, because if your emotions perceive what somebody says is a threat to you, your amygdala is going to get triggered, and you're going to start getting angry, you're going to start getting flushed, you're going to want to either shut down and run away, or you're going to want to get your hairs up on the back of your neck and get ready for a knockdown, drag-out argument here, But you got to take a deep breath, and you got to say, hold on. Maybe I'm not understanding this correctly. And so you honestly say, all right, so I'm confused. Do you mean this or do you mean that? And you assess what's actually being said to make sure that what you're hearing is really what they're saying. Nobody does this. I'm saying on in news programs and everything, nobody does this. No matter what news station you watch, they all intentionally misrepresent the other person's viewpoint to make them look stupid. Because the goal isn't connection and growth. The goal is to be right and garner a tribe and get ratings. And every news station that you see or hear has that goal, or they wouldn't be on the air, because it takes a lot of money to be on the air. We'd all do well to turn off Fox News, turn off CNN, stop that junk, because it's all trying to brainwash us to a viewpoint. All of it. It's all trying to polarize us and get us really hot and get our amygdala rocking, so we just... Outrage is interesting. We're all addicted to it. On a weird subatomic level, it's fun. It's way more interesting and easier to do than connection and growth, trying to understand. So, the first step to conflict is you have to assess and make sure you actually understand what's being said. And to do this, you will have to fight against yourself, because all of our tendencies, all of our temptations will be to want to misrepresent the person, because we're instantly then justified in our own opinions. We don't need to change or grow or connect, because we're right. So we want to misrepresent the other person subconsciously. So in order to actually assess what someone's really saying, you're going to have to fight for it. Assess. Number 2, agree. Agree during conflict. I'm not saying just agree just to have harmony. I'm saying in every situation, you will find somewhere on some level, there will be at some point a common ground. So as you're assessing what that person really thinks and what they're really saying, what they really believe, look for the common ground. Okay, where do we agree? Where are we actually, even if it's not said out loud, where is it implied that we're on the same footing here? At some point, at some level, deep down, we're coming from the same platform. We're on the same team somewhere. Find that place. Find where you're on the same team. And hold that sucker when you find it. You're on the same team at some point. If you get down to the issue, if you get down past all the different layers of what's being said, somewhere there's a common ground. There's some place that you agree. Find it and hold on to it and emphasize it. in your mind, in your heart, and in the conversation. Look for the common ground. Assess the situation. Agree. Where can you agree? Third thing, you assess, you agree. It's a fancy word, augment, which just means it means add something or expound on something. How can you add to the agreement? Expound on how you agree. So here's what I mean. As you're assessing what someone really believes, you find that common ground. Now add to the common ground. Say, oh yeah, it seems like we agree on this. And I would add that we also probably agree here. So figure out a way, another place of common ground. Well, that would mean that we are also both wanting to go towards this same goal. Find some way to add to the agreement. Especially if the other person notices the common ground first. You say, oh yeah, I see that. We do both agree there. We both on the same team. And I would also add, we probably also agree here. What do you think about that? So you're focusing on the common ground. You're focusing on how you are both human. Hot button issues don't view the other side as human. I'm human. They're demons. They're horrid because they think that. How could they think that? I don't even know how they could think that. Chances are they probably don't. You're probably making a caricature of what they believe. You probably don't understand what they really think or believe, or why they believe it. And number two, when we do that, we dehumanize them. So as you're assessing what someone really believes, as you're finding the common ground, as you're adding to it, what you're doing is you're seeing that other person as human. You are seeking to connect. And in that video clip, Roland and Blanche, there's a humanity there that they both see. They never get so angry that they dehumanize each other. They get pretty frustrated. But there's still, even though Roland is hurt and is angered, there's still a genuine tone of humanity for Blanche in his voice. And Blanche is not all up in arms at him. She still has a tone that she cares about him in her voice. So there's a humanization that's going on there. So you assess, you agree, you augment. And then finally, here's the room for the disagreement. You add to the conversation. And this is the point where you disagree. And when you disagree, you do it keeping all the other steps in mind of what they really actually think and believe, why they actually really think and believe it, how human they are, how you understand each other, how you are coming from the same place. If you do those 3 steps right, by the time you get to the disagreement, you've probably already experienced some dissonance in why you're angry. If you do it right, you probably are checking yourself by this point. And so you don't try to avoid to use the word but, because, well, okay, so I see this and this, but, because psychologically when we hear the word but, it means that we ignored everything else before it. It means, usually we think, it doesn't mean that, but that's how we think subconsciously, psychologically. If we hear the word but, it means, yeah, we're human, we agree, but none of that matters because this, what comes after the but, When the but comes by, it usually stinks. You'll never forget that. Anyways, so try to avoid using terms like use the word but. Don't use the word but if you're trying to major on something, because usually what we do in a conflict is we'll say, oh yeah, I see that, I get it, blah, 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 but, and then you really hammer hard the part where you disagree because you're right and you really want them to hear this, But no, if you do the first steps right, when you get here, by the time you get to the point of actually giving your viewpoint that's in a disagreement, you're going to say, well, keeping all that in mind, here's what I would say. Here's where I come from. Here's why I'm saying this. Here's what I think. Here's what I'm feeling. You're not saying, well, you're doing this and you're doing that. No. You're saying, this makes me feel this way. I'm thinking this. My viewpoint is this. It's less, well, this is what it is. Of course, this is this and this is that. You're not making definitive statements. You're acknowledging that it's how you think. I think that With all that in mind, humanizing the other person, with all that, I also think that this. And to add to all of that, is how we agree is, humanizing. And to add to that, I would actually say this, and you can disagree, and it gives grace to your disagreement. And you can have conflict that's based on understanding and connection and growth because you're humanizing each other. When you do this, understanding is the goal, not asserting your view as supreme. Understanding is the goal. Because each conflict is a gift. When a disagreement comes in a relationship, it's an opportunity to build trust. Because it's almost like saying, wow, I'm going to feel safe enough with you emotionally to disagree with you. Because I'm trusting that you're going to handle this in such a way that you care about me more than an intangible idea that you have. When you get into a conflict, it's like it's a gift that someone's holding out, and how you handle that will determine if the relationship from here on out is going to grow or if it's going to get squashed. If you're going to handle that other person as a human, or if you're going to demonize them, dehumanize them, and treat your idea as a human. In the scriptures, without going to, I had a lot of scripture today, but I'm only going to read a couple real quickly for the sake of time. In our scriptures in the book of Romans, we have the Apostle Paul writing to a church who had exploded very fast. And there's Jews who have come to Christ, who have been led to Christ as their Messiah. And there are non-Jews, pagans, Gentiles, non-God worshipers, multiple God worshipers, who the Jews viewed as the enemy. And somehow now they're both united by Jesus in the same spot, in the same gatherings and homes and different places. And there's a whole lot of disagreement going on. Because now it's not just about Jesus, it's about all these other customs, all these other cultural traditions and viewpoints and opinions and preferences and tastes and styles. And they're coming together, and there's a lot of conflict. And Paul writes the book of Romans to address this conflict. In order, in essence, to say, no matter where you've been from, no matter how holy you think you are, or how unholy you think you are, or were, or whatever, or how holy or unholy you think the other group is, it doesn't matter. All that matters is Christ, because Christ cleanses all. Great, but now they're arguing over opinions. Well, how do we do about this tradition and this tradition? Well, I don't get that, and this and that, and this and that. And there's these conflicts become these hot button issues. And so it's usually between the Jews and Gentiles and things like that. And so Paul writes the whole book of Romans to address this situation. From front to back, that's what Romans is about. It's one of the most understood books in the whole scriptures, and a lot of theologians get this completely wrong because they don't understand the background of it, or they refuse to understand the background of it. They put a but in there instead of an and. But so there's a point at the end of the book where the Apostle Paul is addressing this. And he says in Romans 14, there's a whole list. It's from Romans 14, 3 through 10. And he's speaking everything about how they eat, speaking to the customs of how they eat, what they eat. Because some thought some was unclean, I can't eat that. And other people are like, why not? For whatever reason. And there's all these arguments over what we can and can't eat, or what we should or shouldn't eat for whatever reason. Paul says in Romans 14:3, he goes, the one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who doesn't. And the one who doesn't eat everything must not judge the one who does. For God has accepted all of them. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master, servants stand or fall. So he's getting specific now. and they'll stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand. One person considers one day more sacred than another. Another considers every day alike. Each of them, fine, be fully convinced in your own mind. Whoever regards one day as special does so as the Lord. Basically, when you're going to worship. You're going to worship on Sunday or Saturday, because the Sabbath was on Saturday for the Jews, but Christians have always celebrated the resurrection of Jesus on Sunday, because that's the day the Lord was resurrected. And so there's arguments on what day should we celebrate, And Paul's like, doesn't matter. It's not the point. Fine, do what you want to do, convinced in your own mind. But he keeps on going down, and he says in verse 9, for this very reason, Christ died and returned to life, so he might be Lord of both the dead and the living. So you then, why do you judge your sister or brother? Why do you treat them with contempt? We're all going to stand before God. In verse 13, he says, therefore, let's stop passing judgment on one another. Instead, make up your mind to not put a stumbling block or an obstacle in the way of a brother or sister. Down in verse 20, he says, don't destroy what God has done for the sake of food. All food is clean, but it's wrong to eat it if it causes someone else offense. It's better not to eat meat or drink wine or do anything else that'll cause your brother or sister to be offended. And in Romans 15, verse 2 and verse 5, it says this, each of us should please our neighbors for their good, to build them up. May the God of endurance and encouragement give you the same attitude of mind in each other in Christ Jesus. Other translations say it this way, each of us must please our neighbor for the good purpose of building up our neighbor. So this basically means that Jesus is saying, through Paul here, that how we live, no matter what opinion we hold, we should yield for the good of each other. We should regard each other better than our own opinions. And in that clip, Blanche was being very insensitive because in her way, this flag was just a cultural identity to her and her family. But that's meaning that she gave to it. The original purpose for the flag, that flag, was raised by the Confederates to go to war so they could keep their slaves. The actual purpose of the flag was greater than what Blanche's sentimental value was to it. And Roland he doesn't just get mad and throw his arms up in the air. He's trying to explain to her these things. He doesn't begin hating Blanche. He's very respectful to her, but he's saying, listen, this flag stands for more than just your sentimental value here. This is what it was. Don't you know what this represents? This flag was flown to keep a whole race of people under subjugation. It's very much not that different from the Nazi flag. And throughout this dialogue, neither of them gives up on each other. Roland might want to stop working there because he doesn't want to be... Who would want to work for somebody who touts a flag that says you and your people should be owned by others, But he lovingly is explaining why this is hurting him. And they're listening to each other. I mean, it's not perfect how they do it, but by the end of it, when Blanche actually sees this behavior in someone else, all of a sudden her eyes are opened and she gets it, and she owns it. And it probably was pretty embarrassing to her if this was a real scenario. It's obviously a TV show, but you know what I mean? In real life, when we realize when we've made an error in how we think or relate to someone, it's embarrassing and we don't like that. And that's a lot of times why we get angry. And instead of admitting we were wrong in some way, we double down because we want to save face. And we don't want to change because change is hard and staying the same is easy. We don't want to mess with it. But could you imagine what our planet would be like if we prioritized each other? Could you imagine what our political system would look like if on the floor of all these debates in the Senate and Congress and wherever, that they actually hurt each other and humanize each other instead of just calling each other names and stuff. Once name calling happens, there's no respect happening because the argument is gone, and now you're calling someone a name. You're actively dehumanizing someone. As Christians, how can we love a God whom we can't see if we disregard our fellow humans who we can see? And so our simple message this morning is this, we live in a bubble in the West. Our own, we can create little fortresses around ourselves, around our families, around our homes, around our views. And we can stick to those views, and we're so used to being around people who think and believe just like us that when we're forced up against somebody who disagrees, we don't know how to handle it. And we become like little children again. Mine! That person said that this is a dumb animal, but I say it's the best animal. I have 3 kids. I see this ridiculous stuff all the time. So it's easy, I have 3 little kids. So it's easy to see this exact behavior in adults and humans. Never me, of course. Never me. But, yeah, only multiple times a day in me. But it's easy to see. We revert to this because we don't know how to handle conflict. We become a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old again, a junior high school kid again. We become like that instead of seeking to connect and to grow together. I want to show you a quick picture. I was driving to Florida with my family a couple months ago, and I took that picture. It's the Confederate flag being waved. Now, this was somewhere, I think that's somewhere in Georgia, northern Georgia, and I had seen so many of those down the highway that after a couple hours, I decided, I know I'm going to be talking about this in a couple weeks. So I'm like, Beth, would you grab my phone and just, when you see the next one, I'm sure there'll be another one, just take a picture of it. So that's like probably the 15th one I saw on my way to Florida. Now, as a culture, you have to be so calloused to put a line in the sand like that to where there's flags lining a road so that people know what you stand for. When what that stands for is so horrible and dehumanizing to a very large group of people on the planet. It is possible on a mass scale for all of us to do this today. Because the more we get around people and the more we talk about other people when they're not there, who think differently from us when they're not there, when we talk about this to each other who agree with us, all it does is it creates this echo chamber. And now it's not just a group and another group who are polarized. Now you're getting like tribes of people that are now against each other, who refuse to see each other's real point, who refuse to assess their actual viewpoint, who refuse to see a common ground anywhere. They're not human. We don't have common ground anywhere, those people over there. Refuse to connect, refuse to grow. And as Christians, we don't have that right. We don't have that privilege. And I'll close by reading this scripture. We're going to sing this last song and then we'll close. In Romans chapter 13, it's a short little scripture. But it says this. It says, "Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law." There's a more accurate translation that says, "Owe no person anything but except to love them." We do not have the right as followers of Christ to dehumanize another. We have the mandate, the command to love. Love's an action, it's not a feeling in the scriptures. That kind of love is an action. We have the command to humanize other people, to connect with each other. I'm not God. I have this, we all have the Spirit. You're not God, but you have the Spirit. And we experience God when we experience and connect and grow together. But it's painful and it's hard. But that's what sacrifice does. That's one way we sacrifice for the kingdom, is we learn to have solid conflict, to be indebted to love one another. It's a debt we owe each other, is to love each other, to understand, to humanize, not to make a caricature, not to disregard. That's why in one spot in the Gospels, Jesus says, if you even call someone else an empty-headed idiot, you're in danger of eternal separation from God because of your own actions, because you're separating yourself from your fellow humans. So when you do that, you're separating yourself from the divine, because that is in all of us. We need to humanize each other. And Blanche works through that in this clip and ends up doing it very, very well. And it didn't resolve the whole conflict, but it brought them to a place where they connected and they grew together. And that's a kingdom moment. Let's stand. God, we thank you. We thank you for your kingdom being found in unexpected places. God, we thank you for your love and your grace towards us, coming to us in our messes and in our lives, and kneeling down to us as though you're an adult and we're kids and you're coming down to our level. Help us, God, help us to offer that same posture of heart, not in a condescending way, but in a mutual humanizing way to each other. To stoop down to one another, off our high horse, off our viewpoints, and to understand what someone else is actually saying and how they are just as human as we are, and how we're on the same team and we have common ground. We can disagree, and those disagreements help us to understand, but inevitably we're all your people. And we experience your nature and your relationship as we experience others. Help us to love and to be loved, because it's hard and it hurts sometimes to be vulnerable. To your glory, in Jesus' name, amen.
Oh, the beauty of the King. You make righteous those who see. You have written and redeemed my story. Let my eyes see your kingdom shine all around. Let my heart overflow with passion for your name. Let my life be a song revealing who you are. For you are salt and light. Oh, the love that set me free. You bring hope to those in need. You have written and redeemed my story. Let my eyes see your kingdom shine all around. Let my heart overflow with passion for your name. Let my life be a song revealing who you are. For you are salt and light. You are love's great height. You are deep and wide, a consuming fire. You are salt and light. You are love's great height. You are deep and wide.
salt and light. You are salt and light. You are salt and light. You are salt and light.
Hey everyone, it's me, Chantill. I'm back to see you off. We hope you enjoyed your time with us today and that it was meaningful and life-giving. If you want to stay on top of things at Belgrade and know when we will be back, make sure to click the like button on Facebook or YouTube. And subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to hit the bell icon to get alerted when the next episode of Belgrade Online is available. Until next time, I'm Chantill. Thank you for watching and have a great week.